Electricast.
Cars say a lot about who we are.
It represents freedom for a lot of people.
This season on Drive, I'm going to talk to all sorts of different people.
I looked at car names.
Yes.
And
yes.
I found all the car names that have science or astronomically
it's
inspired.
Crazy.
It's huge.
It is. Yes, I happen to be CEO of Ford Motor Company. For me, it's all about cars, movement, and our mutual passion for things that get us around. This is Drive, and I'm Jim Farley.
This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Ewan McGregor stars as Count Alexander Rostov in A Gentleman in Moscow, the new limited series based on the best-selling novel. Stream it on March 29th with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan. Visit ParamountPlus.com to try it free.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Western demands.
Now, this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you. I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up? Welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host, Iris. I'm here with my older brother,
Wesley.
Today, we're talking a movie from 2004, and Or Whatever Movie's favorite, Collateral.
Why are we discussing Collateral today?
Tom Cruise Renaissance?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. He never really went anywhere.
Oh, we're celebrating Tom Cruise's Wolverine haircut.
Sure. With a lot of dry shampoo in it, or whatever made him have white hair and white beard. Actually,
right.
Was his beard white as well? That's dedication to makeup.
It was definitely salt and pepper. I don't know. You tell me. Why are we discussing Collateral?
I felt like this is a weird moment frozen in time that we're never going to see again. But we've talked about Tom Cruise, particularly for Top Gun Maverick this year, and just his level of dedication. And this is him in not a smaller role, definitely a Tom Cruise feely role. But this is a movie for some reason that I return to pretty often and is on and off streaming services all the time. And it felt like a good bonus episode because it takes place more or less in the time period that this episode will be released, albeit at this point, 19 years ago.
Despite this being a 2004 movie and Little Things being a 2021 movie?
The Denzel Washington movie?
Yeah. They seem like they're from the same time period. Really? I mean, they're definitely the same location, and this, not a love letter to LA, but this kind of homage to LA Underworld.
Yeah, Vincent hates LA.
LA Underworld at night. Yeah, what's he say? He wants to get out of there. The moment he gets here, he can't wait to get out.
I wonder if the bad guy hates LA. Does that speak to LA's like wondrous qualities?
Like it's not a bad thing that the bad dude loves LA because it's LA. Happy and shiny. There are some similarities. Collateral has some similarities with our recent bonus episode, Die Hard, with this kind of fish out of water. I guess in this case, it's a bad guy. But in the case of Die Hard, was a good guy. Fish out of water in L.A. with just kind of this veneer of disdain for the city. And then bodies falling on cars.
Good call. This one, of course, being much more sprawling and outside all the time and coyotes and stuff.
That's true. What were the coyotes all about?
So I was really hoping, because I think when you see Collateral, everyone who's seen Collateral remembers the basic premise. But if you think of a scene that sticks out, it's maybe the coyote scene, and I'm not sure why. It's a scene that Tom Cruise said he loved when he read the script. And I was like, oh, it was scripted. Because in my mind, I kind of hoped that they were doing these rigorous night shoots all through LA and stuff. And then a coyote crossed their path, or a couple of them. And they were like, get it. And they pulled focus really quickly. You know how organic it feels? This weird long zoom in the film. And I thought maybe that was a fortuitous moment that caused like a real stop down that led to a contemplative sort of Chris Cornell Audio Slave vibe, but it wasn't.
Oh, so you mean all of those South Central coyotes?
Right, exactly. Like the South Central deer that he hit. But you find that everything is meticulous. And I don't think Michael Mann, in his ultra stranglehold directing, very dedicated and passionate and unrelenting. I don't even think he would have allowed rogue coyotes to run through his set.
So what does it mean?
It was, well, in ancient legend or whatever, if a coyote crosses your path, supposedly you're meant to stop and turn back because it means bad things. It's a harbinger of doom. And should you move forward, bad things will happen to you, accidents, things like that. You could die, and kind of all those things happen.
I kind of read into it like wildness or viciousness amongst us.
Right? Out of place, fish out of water, coyotes out of water.
Yeah, somehow. And they seemed particularly untamed or like they were on the prowl, on the hunt in the concrete jungle. But I was kind of perplexed as to what the filmmakers intended.
Yeah, I think it was the symbolism of it. But not to say that it doesn't happen. There are coyotes around LA, we know, because a lot of celebrities lose their dogs and cats to coyotes. But the Sneak saw a freaking bear in Glendale.
What?
Yeah, like a California black bear in Glendale.
No
which is
way.
kind of more in the hills.
Kind of, like you're right there at the base of the foothills, but not exactly where Amy lives.
But originally, Collateral, the screenplay at least, not set in LA at all. I don't know if there are coyotes in Manhattan, but that's where it was originally set. But Michael Mann, if nothing else, unless he's in the hills of like West Virginia or one of the Carolinas shooting Last of the Mohicans, is an LA dude. I mean, he was responsible. Actually, no, he was responsible for Miami Vice. But Heat, an LA crime saga, was definitely LA based and equally sprawling, much broader cast. But this is LA, and this was shot entirely digitally and meant to have a look like an LA feel or whatever, because it was shot almost completely at night, and the digital at the time was best suited for that. But it was definitely meant to be a vibe.
That this was originally set in Manhattan makes a ton of sense to me, because it was almost shot like it was LA for New York.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, they really treat LA like the city most Angelinos don't experience. I mean, we know that Los Angeles is a car town. You typically move from your car to your destination, back to your home. And yet this LA is an LA full of taxi cabs and public transportation, subways. Like, when was the last time you took a cab and or the metro in LA?
The last time I made the mistake was leaving the airport, because the Ubers always take forever to get into the airport, whereas the cabs are in a line. But yeah, not very often, for sure.
Cabs and public transportation, jazz clubs. The thing that probably most LA seen was like the Korean nightclub.
Yeah.
In presumably K-Town.
Yeah, K-Town has its own kind of vibe. It's almost a Blade Runner-y kind of vibe with all the neon and the signs and things. It definitely adds atmosphere. But I wouldn't say that atmosphere necessarily reeks of LA. Like, you don't see Koreatown and be like, oh, LA, I love that. I mean, they're environs that are almost completely unique. I mean, they go everywhere in this movie.
But it's like you're always seeing the skyline. I guess maybe actually the most LA location or locations are the freeways, because there's a lot of freeway shots. There's a lot of driving going on, even if it is in a cab.
LA, nothing if not diverse.
And a very diverse cast and supporting cast. I think those are the big LA pieces.
Are you speaking specifically to race?
Yeah.
I mean, that's LA. That's particularly representative of LA, I think.
I think so, yeah, the LA melting pot, as they call it. And also the talent just keeps on coming. I know that, being 19 years ago or whatever, all of these actors have had time to kind of come into their own in Hollywood, but the cast just keeps coming.
Yep.
Tom Cruise, obviously a mainstay, but Jamie Foxx basically before his big breakout roles as a dramatic actor.
Right. But I mean, Ray was in the can when he was promoting Collateral.
Oh, no way. When Mark Ruffalo showed up, I was like, why is he talking funny? I was like, seriously? Is Mark Ruffalo going to keep up this shtick? Then he shows that he was an undercover cop. Javier Bardem in a surprising cameo, even though I guess the role itself wasn't surprising. It was actually kind of sad, typical typecasting for early aughts.
Yeah.
Who else shows up?
Jada Pinkett, obviously. And then a really early a cameo by Jason Statham at the airport.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, before he became an action star in his own right.
He was in the vibe. He was coming along, right? It was beginning to happen for him. But it was like one of these things where it just caught a lot of people in the early stages when they were up and coming, and they were in a Tom Cruise movie and in a Michael Mann movie,
right.
But not necessarily, as you said, had come into their own at that point.
So Jason Statham works for Felix, or he's part of Felix's cartel or drug enterprise, presumably, right? Because it's Felix and Co. that hire Vincent.
Didn't see him through intermediaries and middlemen and all these things. And apparently there's this vast John Wick style network happening. Michael Mann is very meticulous in his planning. Everybody has a backstory. Everybody has a plan. Nothing is left to chance. And he talked about all the channels necessary that would allow Felix to work with Vincent on multiple occasions and never meet or interact on the phone or anything like that.
Right. Which gives Max his opportunity to impersonate Vincent and then come into his own in this movie. It's a little bit on the nose, the transformation, but the transformation is so visceral. And it's kind of symbolized by him taking off his glasses and taking charge.
Right.
Even his body posture changes, and for the rest of the movie, Max is a different person.
So Jamie Foxx is a mimic, and he's a comedian first, kind of before he became like a serious quote unquote actor. And he is a high energy, very talented actor, musician, a comedian, etc. And
multi-hyphenate.
Yeah, how do I do this? And Michael Mann said, do it. Wouldn't it be great if you played it like nothing? If you were like completely unmemorable and dull? And then when the change comes, which feels so Jamie Foxx, then it makes sense. But initially, it's just like, yes, no, I don't really want to talk. And he plays it very low key so that there is some weight when he makes the turn and has to be Vincent-like.
The Max character kind of in an impossible situation. Would you have done anything differently?
Max infuriates me with his mild-manneredness and his Maxness. Like, I don't really love this character. I'm glad that he made it through, and I'm glad he saved Annie and everything. But it's like, Annie, you got to listen to me. Listen to me, Annie. He's on the floor. He's trying to kill you. And, and he's like, kind of like, he's dead. He fell in the car. And he's kind of like, poor Max is all repressed, and he doesn't really get his time to shine.
I love Annie's response too. She was like, if this is a joke, it's not funny. This is an odd time to call. Like, she's just like so disappointed that this man isn't who she thought he was.
She's professional and she's refined, and he's like stuttering and stuff. And I think she was kind of slumming when she gave the cab driver her card and was like, in case you want to argue cab routes, right? It was like nice and all because he was a sweetheart, but he's also a cab driver and she's a high profile lawyer. I wonder if Max missed his calling. If he, in real life, he's like a Jamie Foxx type who can impersonate Vincent and like, you better tell him, put his gun away before I take it away and beat his bitch ass to death with it, Like, he could be that dude, but he ended up driving a cab.
Well, he probably, he had a special relationship with his mom.
Right, who was
might have contributed to it.
Definitely apparent. Just you can see his frustration and how he's like afraid to speak up, and like muttering under his breath, like we did when Mom can't hear us. Like, I told you, she's not gonna like the flowers. I didn't buy them, he did.
Mom, I told you not to do that. What? Talk like I'm not here.
It feels very real.
And then they both proceed to talk like he's not there.
What is he saying? Oh, man, poor Max. But that doesn't mean that I like that dude in particular. I also didn't like the mom, because she's so momish. But they found that lady, Ida, the lady who plays Ida, Max's mom, through, random channels or whatever. And it turns out she was from an area not too far from where Jamie Foxx grew up, and they knew a lot of the same people. So it definitely felt like a real mother-son relationship.
Interesting. Do you think that Ida knew that something was off with Vincent, or do you think she was so thoroughly charmed by him?
I think she was charmed by him. They definitely played up that sort of sibling dynamic, like the good kid, bad kid, in mom's favor kind of thing. And expressing her obvious affection and love for Max, even though she was a little bit heavy-handed with her. Like, I tried to call so many times. Why didn't you call me on the telephone? She's so annoyed with him, but also proud of him. Of course I'm proud of him, while speaking to the dashing stranger or whatever. I use that word a lot, dashing. But he kind of is. Like, Vincent is kind of a consummate gentleman type who is like smooth and like sleek. He's like a swiper, no swiping.
Swiper definitely has his touching moments.
Yeah, I guess, and as does Vincent.
Does Vincent spare Max out of some kind of like loyalty or friendship or affection, or does he simply do it because he needs a ride?
I do think that he views Max and Max's mom and Max's life as a curiosity. Max doesn't strive for, well, he dreams about it, but he doesn't strive to achieve the levels of excellence and dedication that Vincent prides himself on. But in a weird way, I think he was fascinated by him and took to him and didn't want to kill him, even though that's kind of the default setting of his personality. I do think there was some twisted kinship as Vincent begins to unravel.
I wonder about that. If that's the case, then it's not any farther than Max serves a purpose for Vincent. Like, I think what Detective Fanning, played by Mark Ruffalo, says is really important. The detail about the Northern California murders.
Yeah, the other cab driver.
The dramatic irony was that we knew that regardless of how Vincent might outwardly feel about Max, that Max was going to suffer the same fate as the Northern California cabbie.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't go so far as to call it affection, but you make little connections or whatever with Uber drivers and stuff, and you're like, oh, that was nice. But I do think Vincent saw the utility in Max of being able to get the new information, the information back from Felix, right? All his dossiers and murder profiles.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure that he could do it. I don't think he had confidence that he could do it. He's like, I'm amazed you got out of there with your head on your shoulders or whatever.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Life is hard, but finding a really great podcast makes the days go by so much easier. Hi, my name is Blue Telusma. I'm a writer, an emotional intelligence coach, and the host of Humanize with Blue Telusma, a podcast where we believe that when you humanize everyone in the room, a great conversation is almost guaranteed. Join us every week here on Electricast as me and my guest co-hosts unpack big topics and interview even bigger personalities with a sense of humor and a dash of mischief. If you're looking for a new best friend in your head, we've got you covered. Electricast.
It seems obvious to me what a Tom Cruise movie this is, because the dude is unparalleled in his excellence of approach to anything he attempts to do. Like his gunplay and his handling and stuff, because he trained for 3 months with live ammunition, and now they use, like, instructors will use clips from this movie as forms for technique.
Really?
Yeah, you can see it on screen. It's apparent how much he trained and how careful all his physicality was in this movie, don't you think?
2 to the sternum, 1 to the head.
Right? And you watch it in an unbroken cut, and you're like, that dude is really fast. Like if they were sending me into a room and they're like, okay, you got to fight to the death, it's Mike Tyson or Tom Cruise, I would absolutely choose Mike Tyson. Maybe he gets into a boxing mindset and I can break the rules and go for the eyes or the throat or the nuts or something. Tom Cruise would kill me.
And he's not more lethal than he is in the K-Town club scene. And yet, talk about Collateral. Did that scene have to get quite so messy? I mean, that's all out pandemonium.
Yeah, with crowds and stuff. And still, laser focused, not concerned about the crowd stuff. I think he eats it because he bumps into a party goer at one point. But then he shoots from the ground. But it's all controlled in Vincent's mind. He sees the target, he draws on the target and kills the target. And it wasn't, don't make it like Tom Cruise, it wasn't about being fast or about looking great on screen, although he is and it does. You can see the pause where he takes that last beat, gets his aim perfectly right and shoots the dude between the eyes to seal the deal. Like, it's really about efficiency.
Efficiency with a ton of collateral damage. I mean, goons are going down by the dozens. Cops too, like screaming clubgoers. It gets a little insane.
But I mean, as good as Vincent knows he is at his job, he does adapt or whatever as long as he keeps his focus. But the idea of keeping Max, this unquantifiable element, like you bring someone along with your murders all night long, how is that not going to go wrong? I guess you kill him at the end and it's all tidy. But, he might have been better off driving himself and double parking and shooting people. Or shooting Max and taking the cab in the first place.
It does seem like a extra unnecessary liability to hire an unknown. Like maybe for one hit, right, and then you get back to the airport or whatever. But 5? That's a lot of exposure
all night long,
to risk.
Especially when the cabbie becomes aware after the first hit when it lands on his car.
Right, exactly. And that seemed extra sloppy. He could have gotten a couple hits done under the radar and then saved all of the Max drama and resistance for later on in the shift.
Maybe this is just Vincent, a flawed person looking for acceptance and a friend.
You think that Vincent did it on purpose just to have a dramatic way to reveal to his friend the exact nature of him?
How much smarter he is, how much more he knows than the jazz guy, shoots him 3 times in the head, stands up and catches his chin before his head hits the floor. He could have avoided shooting the dude, Ramon Ayala or whatever, out the window onto the taxi cab.
Right?
Nope. Vincent wants Max to accept him and wants to be loved. I mean, it's way more a bromance than it is a romance between Max and Annie, right?
I mean, I guess they're getting to know each other and they're finding the way that they do fit.
You just don't understand how dudes do.
You're right. I don't see this as a bromance. And they play it so kind of chaste and grounded that the romance, if any, between Annie and Max is chaste.
So, a question about these characters, going back to what I said earlier about this being like a thing that's never going to happen again. Do you think that the characters' personal lives, the actors, bleeds into performance at all?
Is this a Tom Cruise crazy question?
Because Tom Cruise is the bonkers Scientologist, but that doesn't typically, I don't think, bleed through in his movies. He's very careful about that ever since the Oprah couch jumping incident. But, this is Jamie Foxx a little bit restrained, and I was shocked to find the intricacies and interconnectedness of these people behind the scenes. It's almost like a disparate kind of inverted Rat Pack kind of thing.
How are these characters interconnected?
Okay, follow me
actors
along this journey of time and through time and love. Jamie Foxx worked with Michael Mann on Ali, the Will Smith movie, and that was a very different, much kind of flashier role for Jamie Foxx, and one that really got him noticed before this happened. And so before Collateral 2001, Tom Cruise made Vanilla Sky with Penelope Cruz. No relation. Spelled differently. But then they broke up, and Penelope Cruz married Javier Bardem, who worked with Tom Cruise on Collateral, and then was with Tom Cruise as part of what was going to be the shared Universal Dark Universe, when Tom Cruise was in The Mummy and Javier Bardem was set to play Frankenstein before all that fell apart. And supposedly he and Tom Cruise, despite Tom Cruise being the ex of his now wife, remain good friends. And on the set of Collateral, Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx crazy bonded, like bros. Like Tom Cruise got him a piñata full of sour Skittles on his birthday, and they talked and chatted and were bros. And Tom Cruise, they were both single fathers at the time. Their kids played and stuff. He had split up from Nicole Kidman. And then Tom Cruise dates Katie Holmes and is married to her and has a daughter. And then they break up, and then Jamie Foxx gets involved with Katie Holmes and was for 6 years or something, a long time. And so I don't think they're bros anymore. And of course, for Michael Mann, after Will Smith, then Jada Pinkett Smith is in his next movie. And there's this weird interconnectedness that kind of blows my mind. Maybe it's like a Hollywood is a very small town kind of vibe, but it seems like an unnecessary amount of all these people boning each other's significant others at one point or another.
Hollywood, especially at this level, is a small town. And also 19, almost 20 years is a long time in Hollywood relationships.
I guess so.
I did not make the Penelope Cruz connection, and that does kind of weird me out. His kind of possessiveness of Penelope Cruz, but I kind of forgot about that relationship. I mean, back to the original question, why are we talking about Collateral, and what does this movie mean to you?
It's one of those movies that I'm not sure that everyone saw. It doesn't have the high profile of most Tom Cruise movies, I don't think. I think the digital filmmaking definitely gave it a look, but it didn't make it very cinematically appealing. It's kind of a dark movie, like you said, very gray, a little bit somber. You know, it's pretty contained in the cab, and then there are cityscapes and stuff, and the train. But other than that, it's like Speed. You know, it's like all contained in the one vehicle, and then inexplicably it switches to the train for the end. But it was, along with the crazy amount of cast that shows up, it seems like a movie that was a little bit under the radar, and one that stands out to me as a clear Tom Cruise sort of embracing excellence and dedication to training and stuff like that. Movie that I think about and watch kind of a lot. Like, I'm vaguely disappointed when Collateral's not on streaming services for a while. I had recommended it before, and then it popped back up, and I was like, we should do it. And then you were amenable to the idea, maybe because you just saw Heat. And I was like, it is time. It seemed like there was stuff to talk about in this movie, for this movie. The best kind of bonus episode, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
Feels like it should have been a big movie. Wasn't really, but it's definitely one worth talking about because I've seen it so much.
Yeah, I think in this era of big budget action movie sequels, I think that this, I'm not sure if at the time it did, but it kind of defies genre because it is a drama mixed with a thriller. There's a lot of action and thrilling set pieces, and yet always punctuated by these very contained, character-driven moments that take place primarily in the cab. And so maybe that's why it fell through the cracks, which is kind of ridiculous to say considering this was a successful movie in terms of box office, and I assume continued to be in home video. And I guess I haven't really considered Michael Mann's body of work, but if you want to talk about Michael Mann's work in any serious way, you have to consider Collateral.
I agree. And I think a lot of the participants, a lot of the heavy hitters that showed up, even if they weren't quite on all of them on our radar at the time, knew that. They can see who he is as a filmmaker, what he brings and what they can bring to the screen through his characters. I think that he's respected in that way by actors and performers, and they will show up for him because of the strong material he puts out.
So a must-see Michael Mann movie, but a must-see movie in general?
I mean, I like this movie. I recommended it, to a number of people, but it's not, I don't know. I would give it an all right rating for sure. Like a strong personal all right for me, but if someone was like, where do I start with Michael Mann? I would say Last of the Mohicans and Heat. But this feels somehow quietly special to me. And for that reason, I'll give it an all right rating.
And I will join you with a good, and that's our discussion on Collateral. 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com. Wes, did you enjoy this episode?
I mean, I like Collateral. I like talking about Collateral. And that's the point, is finding movies that I'm excited to talk about, and you're generally receptive to those movies. Sometimes we completely disagree, but it seems like the skill and the talent involved in Collateral was evident.
And to our generous listeners, did you enjoy this episode? If so, like, follow, and subscribe to Or Whatever Movies, please. Go into your app, give us a 5-star rating. Not only does it make us feel great, but it helps other listeners to find us. Check out our other Tom Cruise and Michael Mann episodes at orwhatevermovies.com, where there are over 200 reviews and discussions to listen to. Thank you for listening to this one on Collateral, available on Paramount Plus, and we'll see you next time.
Are you a fan of classic cinema or a young person who wants to discover the best films of all time? Do these legendary movies still hold up?
On the Generation Film podcast, two guys who grew up when movies dominated the culture share a great film with a panel of young movie lovers and see how it plays for today's generation.
We discuss changes in storytelling styles, representation,
the making of each film, its initial reception, and how its meaning has changed over the years.
Join us as we explore cinema classics across generations on Generation Film.
Electricast. Hey there, I'm DC. I host the rock podcast Back to the Arena, The Interviews. It's about a 30-minute podcast where I talk one-on-one with a band who has released new music. You can find us on all the best podcast sites like Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and more. If you're a rock fan like me, subscribe today to Back to the Arena, The Interviews.
Electricast. Electricast.